And we are live. Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Soul Survivor podcast. Ryan and I are back to discuss Survivor 48, episode 3. It was a week off, so apologize for that, but happy to be back. What is up, Ryan?
Dylan, I'm doing good. I'm glad to be back. Yeah, last week was a fun episode with the Kevin Blindside. So sad we didn't get to recap that. That was a good episode. But you're happy that we're back this week because we got a lot to discuss. I feel like we're going to be like Jeff in the Second Chance reunion with the whole whiteboard. I mean, like, all right, this player's safe, this player's safe, this player's not safe. You can't vote for Spencer. So, yeah, it's going to be basically the same thing where we're going to break out the whiteboard and have to break down how this crazy tribal council went.
Dude, I literally was just telling you, it's been like 3-4 days since the episode, and I understand what happened, but my brain is not processing it fully. So I'm excited to dive into it. We had Justin go home at what was one of the craziest tribal councils in terms of like, I wouldn't say in terms of shock value, but in terms of just pure chaos. It was ridiculous. It was something we've never seen before. So excited to get into that. And I'm going to hand it to you, Ryan, as I always do in these types of historic moments, to break down the numbers and how everything went down.
Yeah, so I will first say that you phrased it very well, where it's like, we understand what happened because we do understand the base rules of Survivor and how tribal councils work. My problem, and I've said this in the past in the new era, is they've made the game especially with losing votes, and we'll get into the journey later. They make the rules now so convoluted with people losing votes and whatnot that they put themselves into a hole that they have to dig themselves out of. So in the end, when we go through this and we explain it, based on the rules of Survivor, it's going to make sense, but it's still, like you mentioned, like it hasn't fully processed for us yet. So basically this tribal council, Dylan, and I'll go, bit by bit, slow if people, just so people understand. And if you want to interrupt me at any point, feel free to go ahead. So heading into tribal council, they're all going to vote Mary. Mary knows she's going home. So like most people do in the new era, she says, I'm going to play my shot in the dark, go for a Hail Mary. It actually hits. Third time it's ever hit, but only second time it actually mattered because Jamie's didn't matter. But for Caleb and Mary, it worked. So Mary gets 2 votes. It was a 2-0 vote for Mary. So those are obviously negated. Now, what happens when there is no votes at tribal council is the remaining players have to vote amongst themselves. So then what happens is that's going to be Say, Cedric, and Justin. But what Say and Cedric don't know is that Justin has lost his vote at the journey. So only Say and Cedric are re-voting, except for Mary. So Say and Cedric re-vote, and it's now 1-1 because Cedric votes for Say and Say votes for Justin. Now, Jeff, and this is where this is important, Jeff comes into the vote now and says, in a tie, normally the 2 people in a tie can't vote because you can only vote for each other. However, in this case, I have to reveal Justin doesn't have a vote, so he can't vote for Say in this case. So what's going to happen now is Say can only vote for Justin, and Cedric can now choose between Say and Justin. So it can be 1-1 again, or Cedric can send Justin home 2-0. So they revote again. It's still 1-1, the same votes. Say votes for Justin, Cedric votes for Say, and now we're deadlocked. Jeff now comes back and says, okay, what happens now is in a deadlock, the people who are not part of the deadlock have to discuss who they send home. If they can't decide who goes home, then what happens is they draw those 2 that were in a deadlock become safe. Those that were discussing have to draw rocks for who goes home. The problem is that Mary is immune because she hit the shot in the dark. So it's only Cedric making the decision to send home either Justin or Say. And if he can't decide, he goes home. He initially wants to keep Justin. We'll discuss all the talking points here, but then he ends up choosing to vote out Justin, keeping himself, Say, and Mary. That's my breakdown. That was a lot. I'll pause. Your reactions and your thoughts.
Yeah, my reaction is like there was like almost like I understood what was happening, but it was almost like there was too much to like process at once. Like, because there were just so many added unnecessary steps because, like you said, the shot in the dark, the losing votes, right? So I was like, oh, okay. Like, it makes sense that Cedric eventually needed to decide who was going home because in that case, like, it's just basically just like, the same thing as normal, except for now he's the only one that could literally decide, literally the only one, and everybody else would be theoretically safe if there was no decision made. I thought we were, it's hilarious. I thought we were almost headed to like a crazy moment where like Cedric like honorably falls on the sword. I thought that would be the most new era coded thing of all time. I was like, we could be headed towards that. And then I was like, all right, but here's what bothers me. And I think it's ridiculous. You know what? There's a lot of things that bother me. And I think this was a good episode, but I think these things need to be discussed. First of all, Cedric doubles down on voting side, trying to get her out. I'm botching names all right early in the season. He doubles down on voting Say, and then does not like he made it so it was a deadlock, and then switches his vote to end up voting out Justin, basically just because Say makes some pitch and Justin, you know, what we were shown at least, Justin does not make nearly as good of a pitch, if anything. Now we further learned from exit interviews, it appears that it went kind of long and that Justin was fighting, but they didn't show any of that. So I'm led to believe that there was nothing Justin said, even though it could have went on for a while. I'm led to believe there was nothing that Justin said that was even worth showing. So clearly he didn't put up enough of a fight, whereas Say did. And to be honest, Cedric just put himself in a horrible position because all he had to do was just double down on it, be like, I'm sorry, Say, this is horrible, but Mary Shot in the Dark was safe. I have to vote you out tonight. And you know what? It's a game of Survivor. If she doesn't get over it ever, like it is what it is. And then you have Justin as a strong duo to come out of a decimated tribe. We know in the past of Survivor, those strong duos coming out of decimated tribes go very far in the game historically. Yeah. And he would have had that. It was sitting right there for him on a silver platter. And instead he like literally just, you know, votes out Justin and is like, Justin was like, oh, you can still go to my pizza place, whatever. Votes out Justin. And then also like tries to create some kind of strong three and is like, oh, Mary and Say, could you guys get along well? Like, well, what are you doing? Like in a scenario where there's no tribe swap coming next week, which we know that's happening, he's just like making himself on the outs. Like, I don't know. It was a bizarre situation. I think Cedric's in and I know they're swapping tribes. I think that without his number one ally in Justin in the game, and we know that Say is not going to stay strong with Cedric. Like, we just know it's not going to happen. Like, the way that she's playing aggressively, she could easily turn on him and just be like, well, he wrote my name down multiple times last tribal. Like, I'm going to turn on him. He voted out his number one loyal ally. And after doubling down on trying to get out Say, and it's a disaster for Cedric. And there's more stuff I could rant about, but I'll let you give a rebuttal first before I go on.
One thing I'll quickly say about Luigi's is that the kids are going to use that as a joke now. But the kids these days still don't know that back in the Heroes versus Villains finale, Stephanie LaGrossa famously was like, you can come to Gigi's and get a slice. So, yeah, the kids are going to know Luigi's, not Gigi's. But no. So I think to get back to like the decision as well, I think Cedric did put himself in a tough spot. And you bring up a very funny point about him falling on the sword because I didn't even consider that. I almost forgot last week when he cost him the challenge. He almost was like, I screwed up. If you guys want to send me home, I understand. Like, so he almost did it last week and they were like, no, we're not going to do that. So I didn't even consider, like you were saying, that he could have been like, you know what? I can't pick between Say and Justin. I'll go home. I will give, and we'll talk more about the journey later with Justin, because I do think even though Exit Press does seem to indicate that he gave up some type of a fight, the edit didn't really portray that. And I feel like maybe he said it and they didn't show up. I feel like the one argument he had to say to Cedric, if he wanted to really stay, was like, Cedric, you know, you wrote her name down twice. She may say she'll forgive you and she'll work with you, but she's never going to forget you wrote her name down not once, but twice. You had a chance to send me out when I couldn't vote on the revote, and you didn't do it, and you actually voted for her again, further cementing that, like, you were more loyal to me. So if he wanted to stay, he should have said that. Maybe he did and they didn't show up. I feel like that's a very important argument he could have made, that Say will just never forget this, knowing the type of player Say is. But I will give Say a lot of credit, though. And I think Say 2 weeks in a row, yes, I know a couple people find her a little bit much, and some people think she's very polarizing, but I don't think anyone can deny she's great TV. She's so entertaining. And she's honestly, maybe she plays too hard, too fast, but she's a pretty good, savvy player, because she makes the emotional pitch and is like, Cedric, I've always been loyal to you. I've never lied to you. And then she's like, you can't even trust Justin. He didn't tell you he lost his vote. He had a chance to tell you, didn't tell you until Jeff had to force it out of him. And now he put you in the spot to have to make this decision. So she made the logical pitch and the emotional pitch. So I'll give Say a ton of credit here as well.
Yeah, I'll give Say credit for saving herself. I mean, not easy to do, back against the wall, good situation. Now, the other thing that I was going to rant about, Ryan, is that, like, besides we had this whole debacle where Cedric, in my opinion, made a horrific move, like, this journey, which eventually led to the lost vote of Justin, was the single worst journey that we've had in Survivor. And I'm somebody that has not minded the journeys personally. Like, I don't love it, but I also like, all right, is whatever. It's a journey. I mean, making them roll dice. What do we do? We're not playing a damn board game. I mean, what is going on here? So Justin rolls dice and ends up losing his vote. Bianca rolled dice, ends up losing his vote. And then I'm not even, there's so much happened in this episode. I'm not even remembering who went for the Orange Tribe. Who went for the Orange Tribe?
For what was this?
The journey.
Oh, that was Camilla.
Camilla, and she got it. She got the extra extra vote.
Yeah.
Okay. There's so much happening at the end of this episode. I'm losing track. But bottom line is that he comes back from this journey. And here's the thing. I'm seeing a lot of people be like, is Justin the most screwed player of all time? No, he's not the most screwed player of all time, because he, despite the fact that Survivor did screw him over with this journey and he loses his vote due to a dice roll, and he was randomly picked to go on this journey by the tribe, like, he screwed himself over because he lies terribly about the journey, to the point where, like, even if he stayed, it would have been like, his lies weren't adding up. He didn't have a vote and didn't tell anyone, so that would have been a little sketchy coming back. And it's just like, if you handled this a lot better, I think if you told Cedric, like, hey, you're my number one, I got to tell you, I lost my vote, and here's how we have to handle tribal council, then I think Cedric is more inclined to just keep him. Whereas Say could use that as ammo against him. Like, hey, you didn't know he lost his vote. He lied to you. Maybe he's not as loyal as you thought originally. And that becomes a really good argument for Say against Justin. Whereas that argument cannot be made against you if you simply just tell your number one the truth. So I'm not really sure what Justin was thinking. And I don't want to say he completely got screwed, because eventually, like, in life and in anything, and in Survivor especially, like, you do create your own luck, right? It's like, you got to put yourself in position that if a game of chance does happen, you're in the best spot possible, and he did not do that.
Yeah, no, I will agree. I feel like we can go back in history and find people who are more screwed, and things that were more unfair. Now, I do think he is one of the more unlucky people in recent memory, because, like you said, not only is he forced to go, because I will say, like, because if you think about, like, a lot of things had to go wrong for Justin to go home here. Yes, he could have argued his case more. Yes, he could have told Cedric that he lost his vote, and they could have planned around that. And also Cedric would have stayed loyal in the end, I think so. But I think three things happened that were kind of out of his control. And I think a lot of things had to go wrong for him to go out. I still, honestly, even until Cedric made the final choice, I thought there's a good chance Say still goes out here. I didn't think until the last second that Justin was gone, until he kind of just didn't really fight that hard. Because what had to go wrong? The Purple Tribe had to randomly pick him to go, which, by the way, who knows if the Orange Tribe would have sent him. So Purple Tribe winning was one thing. He didn't control that. Purple Tribe sending him randomly, he didn't control that. Him forced to play the game of Yahtzee. I mean, whoever said the new era is like Mario Party is honestly pretty accurate, because now it's literally just like rolling dice at this point. But he had to roll the dice, lost his vote. And then the fourth thing that he couldn't control was her hitting a 1 in 6 shot in the dark. So I'll agree with you that he could have done things to save himself. You make your own luck, and he could have maybe stayed. But I will give him credit and say, like, if we're ranking the top 10 most unlucky people, the top 5 most unlucky, he's got to be up there, because that's 4 things you really have no way of controlling. So that's pretty crappy. And I agree with you. I've not been this frustrated in a while with rolling dice. I mean, this happened, I think, in 44, where, like, Sarah or somebody was forced to play a game of chance. Probably the most annoying thing since the Hourglass. I can't stand when players don't have any agency. And, like, at least let them opt in. If they want to opt in and roll the dice, fine. But if you don't let them opt in, it's so stupid.
At least make them do something skilled. right?
Yeah.
Like make them do a puzzle, make them do some kind of physical challenge. Like ridiculous. But yeah, we got a tribe swap next week, which I'm happy about because another thing that is bothering me a lot about this new era and the 3 tribes is I think it makes the pre-merge way less interesting, in my opinion. Usually I'm not a huge pre-merge guy, even with 2 tribes, let's say. But especially with the 3 tribes, I'm not a huge pre-merge guy unless it's a returnee season and I'm like excited to watch everyone back. But like, here's the thing with the 3 tribes, and especially in the new era. I think last season we had a particularly good pre-merge where it was like kind of evenly distributed who was going home. And like we had every tribe losing, and we had the Genevieve coming out party. Like that was like a fun pre-merge. I think most of the time in the new era, and I don't have the stats on this, but we'd have to grab it. But it feels like one tribe is getting decimated pretty much every season. And the more you get whittled down in numbers with the lost votes, it's just the less people could vote and the less interesting tribal councils are generally. Or this was an interesting tribal council, but the less the less scenarios and the less possibilities on votes, it's quite annoying. So you got to go back to 2 tribes. First of all, I hope they do that for season 50, but I'm really over the 3 tribe format. And not only that, Survivor did a really bad job of dividing the tribes because me, you, and everybody else on podcasts looked at the tribe divisions before the season and were like, yeah, green is completely screwed. And it's exactly what happened. So happy that we're swapping tribes, bottom line, because we needed green to be broken up bad because it is a nightmare.
Yeah, I think historically, if you look back at the new era, which is 8 seasons, I don't know why I said historically, it's only 8 seasons. But
historically, a few years.
It's happened. I think it's happened half the time or 5 times. So when you say how many times have we had like a disaster tribe, it happened, I think, with Shannon Ricard's tribe in 41. It happened with the Tika group with Jam and Carol, and that happened in 44. Disaster was the yellow tribe Lulu with like Caleb and Emily. That was disaster. Tiffany and Q and Kenzie's tribe was a disaster, and now this one. So 5 times out of the new era. I think like 42, 43, and 47 last season had like more of an even distribution, which was like, to your point, more interesting. Yeah, but 5 out of 8 times we've had just a disaster. But Dylan, it's not a shock. I mean, logically, if you're taking somebody's flint and you're not giving the flint back until they win a challenge, so they can't make as much fire, they can't cook as like they're going to naturally be weaker. So like so for me, if we go back to last premiere for a second, when we can vote for, if we can vote, and it's like give them rice or not, and some people are like, oh, don't give them rice, make them work for it. It's like I would rather see the tribes be a bit more even than see one tribe get decimated because they don't get rice, because we all know they're going to keep stealing the flints. We all know that. So whatever we can do to make the game more like fair and equitable, so that way the tribes are more even and we don't see a decimation. So it doesn't surprise me that we see most of the new era seasons have one tribe just get like decimated.
And here's the thing: even if you have 2 tribes and a tribe continuously loses, like it doesn't bother me as much because there's still so many numbers and so many different ways the vote could go. So if one tribe on a 2 tribe season where it's 9-9 and there's 3 straight losses, it's like you still have 7-6 people that are there to do a vote, and those are good numbers for Survivor tribal councils and votes. So I get rid of the 3 tribes. It's horrible. It's really bad. It's really bad. But
I'll say one quick thing though. We have a swap next week. I don't mind if we swap. I listen. I agree with you. It's been 8 seasons in a row of 3 tribes. They got to switch it up. Hopefully, they do that for 50.
It's going to be 3 tribes. It's going to be 3 tribes next week, I assume.
I would assume it'll be 3 tribes as well. Yeah. But like, I'm okay. I agree with you. If we have 8 seasons in a row of no swaps and 3 tribes, it gets very boring. Now, 45, Dylan had a swap, but in the end, like 2 tribes basically stayed together, and then one other one was a little bit mixed. But it was kind of like a half swap. I'm okay with having 3 tribes if there's a swap, but if there's no swap, it's boring. So we'll see if it gets interesting.
Yeah, I'm in firm agreement there. I'm fine with the swap. Still, I'm saying mostly just for start with 2 tribes.
Yeah.
On future seasons. All right, let's get to the other tribes. We've been talking 20 minutes, haven't touched the purple and orange tribe yet. Here's the thing, and I've been a little bit negative on this podcast, but I'm very excited to watch Orange and Purple, the players on those tribes, finally go to Tribal Council. I feel like there's a lot of untapped potential. We haven't seen them strategically a ton yet. We've seen a little bit of each. But let's get right into it. Purple Tribe. I thought, and let me just start here because I thought this was one of the funniest things. Joe makes a bonfire for the entire tribe, and it's showing this whole moment, and they're all like gathered around the bonfire. And Star's just not there. It is the first thing I realized. I'm like, oh no, they have a whole bonfire and Star's just not there with them. So I don't know what that was about. I was literally waiting for like the confessional from Star, like I don't feel included, like I'm not involved in this, and we just got nothing. So that I thought was funny. And how about Joe making the bonfire? I mean, that's pretty crazy out there. So good for him. But there were some interesting dynamics we have here. I think Bianca and Thomas is clearly going to be some type of big duo in this season. And I like how we're getting the little like breadcrumbs of like Thomas didn't tell Bianca, but Bianca told Thomas about her advantage. Like that's good. So, well, not her advantage. She told him exactly what happened, but I'm excited for that. I think that duo is really fun to watch. I like Thomas a lot. Eva, I think it's starting to get a little concerning for her.
Mm-hmm.
I think she made a few rough decisions in this one. I mean, going to Star and I think she had the right idea to go to Star and try to maybe gain trust there, but her doing it by throwing out Thomas and Bianca's name when Star thinks that she's close to Thomas and Bianca, not a great dynamic. So I'm worried for her. I'm worried for Star, but overall, I'm really excited to watch this group. And I haven't even mentioned Shaheen yet, who has been really, really good and a little bit under the radar. I'm excited to watch this group eventually get to actually play the game because they're fun to watch.
Yeah, and this goes back to our talking points earlier about like a disaster tribe where you don't see a lot of the other two tribes, and eventually they're going to go at it. So, I mean, we even see in this episode when Camilla comes back with her extra votes, someone's like, great, we can use this against the Purple Tribe. Like whenever you have a decimated tribe and now we have a swap or eventually the merge, you're going to see the two big dog tribes kind of swing for each other, and now you're going to have Cedric, Mary, and Say be kind of like the kingmakers here. But yeah, with Purple, Eva is somebody who I know a lot of people are a fan of, and I think, like you mentioned, she does one or two things that like the thought process is there, but the execution is just not there. Like for example, like you want to give a bracelet to somebody like that's your close ally to further build that bond. Great, I think that's great. I mean, we saw that kind of in Cambodia where Cass makes the bracelet for Kelly, and then Kelly's like, "Is it an idol?" She's like, "No, it's a bracelet." So I think that's cool. Here's the problem. When you do that in front of the whole tribe, that's why Thomas and Shaheen are like, we're not just going to let an obvious two kind of like pick us off, especially if we get rid of Star, we're only going to further cement Eva and Joe, and they're going to be a problem down the road. There are also big threats. So she made a big mistake giving that to him in front of the whole group. And then, like you mentioned, she tries to see if she can trust Star. She clearly can't trust Star. And she recognizes that. She goes, I can't trust Star because I asked her, do you have anything? Everybody else in the tribe knows. She doesn't tell me. So Star doesn't trust you. So you should just like kind of stop there or say, Star, who do you want to vote for? Instead, you offer up and say, we don't need two puzzlers. We don't need Thomas and Bianca. We only need one of them. So of course Star is going to say, great, let me run that right back to Thomas and Bianca. Because even if like you were lying to me, they're not going to trust you now because they don't know if you were telling me the truth. So yeah, I think Eva's thought process, I see where she was coming from, but these unforced errors are going to cause her some problems, I think.
Yeah, I keep thinking back to the episode 1 conversation where Joe is like, I'll fall on the sword for her if I have to. I'm wondering if that was just like a heartwarming moment or if it was like foreshadowing that, like, a lot of times in Survivor, right? It's like, Eva, they think she's a little bit all over the place with how she's playing socially. Like sometimes that does hurt your closest ally. And like, I wonder if they just go for Joe and are like, he's close to Eva. He's a social threat. He's close to everybody. I'm going to go for him. And he actually goes first before Eva. Just because of that, honestly, I'm just thinking about that just from that one exchange. Like, does he get voted out first before Eva? Or does he end up just going far? And like, that was just an early storyline, but that'll be interesting to watch. I certainly don't think he'll jump ship from Eva. So that should be interesting to watch if they end up on the same tribe in the swap or not, or we'll see what happens.
Yeah, and Dylan, at the end of the podcast, I know we still got to finish up purple and get to orange. I mean, we have like one or two things to discuss, but we can always wrap up the episode because we haven't had to do this since 45 of discussing what could happen with the swap and like who ends up where.
Yeah. Yes, we definitely need to do that. Now let's go to orange because I have lots to discuss here as well.
I will say one more thing about purple before you get to orange, though.
Go for it.
Unless you were planning to talk about the journey again, which I don't think we were because I think we're so fed up with it. I found it very interesting, and Robin Steven made a good point as well, that Bianca she told nobody except for Thomas that she lost her vote. She lied to the whole tribe, but she told her number one ally she lost her vote. Whereas Thomas got the what was it? He got the vote steal.
Yes, so
he didn't tell anybody. And Robin Steven brought up a good point because people always say, like, when should you tell people news? And I don't know if I fully agree with it, but I see where Rob is coming from. Rob feels like if you have like bad news, don't tell anybody except for the person you trust, because the person you trust can maybe help you get out of it. Whereas if you have good news, don't share it with anybody because worst case that could leak. So yeah.
I think based on the early edit, and I just mentioned this before that I like the dynamic between Thomas and Bianca. I think it's one that we're going to see go far into the game. My instinct says that Thomas is going to be the villain of the season. And I don't know. I just, the way he's scheming, I think like kind of some people are like, Shaheen is kind of onto him, but I don't think anybody's going to be onto him really. And I think that he's not afraid to cut someone's throat. Like I think he's made that pretty clear to us. So I think he'll be the villain of the season. I'm excited to watch. I think he's really good. Let's go to Siva though, the Orange Tribe. Okay. We have a hilarious situation. I don't want to say hilarious because there is a human element here, but I think the whole way it happened and like just the development of David as a character is quite funny. I don't think we can deny that, right? I think his situation is for sure like a heartwarming situation, and he needs the money, which I think I want to give Survivor props, because I think something that has been spoken about on a lot of these podcasts is that the casting has not been diverse in terms of like income class. Like it's always like people who are like Ivy League and, you know, in good job. Whereas David, it's like he actually like really needs the money, which I think is huge for the show. It's like we don't get enough people on the season who like really need the money anymore. I think that's been an issue with New Era casting, and now we have it. So good job by casting. But I think the overall feeling for me about David's story is like, first of all, like I'm happy that he needs the money. And the other part of me is like, I think it's funny that the way he phrased it was like, if I don't win Survivor, my girlfriend is going to break up with me. So that just, he's a hilarious character. And I like that story was told, and I like that he was developed like that as a character. I hope he goes far. I really do, because he's so entertaining to watch.
Yeah. So, I think David is a really fun character. I think I'll be honest, I think he's much more deep than, you know, the previews made us believe. And I think that was obviously intentional. Like they make him seem like the classic, what did Camille call him? He's like the internet Chad.
Yeah. Like, and the preview of the season, it was just like, I'm a chocolate milk guy. Look at me, my biceps, right? But he's not really like, and he told us that in his confessional to start the season. He's like, I think people see that on the surface, but like, I'm way more than that. And I think that once people get to know me, they'll like kind of look past that. So yeah, go on. But I think that's a great point.
And to be fair, he didn't do himself any favors when he goes, I also try to stay away from water whenever I can. But so he didn't help himself, but he's obviously a very, you know, complex individual. Like you mentioned, you know, they don't do a lot usually with like socioeconomic status. And I'll also give them credit that they've been doing a lot more of the backstories in confessionals, like the old Survivor days. They have not been doing a lot of flashbacks, which I think a lot of us really appreciate. Sorry if you heard the truck go by. Yeah, I put my head in my hands for a second because it brought me back to Kyle and David's conversation. And I've been in this spot before, Dylan, where sometimes you're over eager to connect with somebody and you do a little bit too much. And I think Kyle definitely watching this back is like, I put my foot in my mouth where David's like, yeah, I live in a trailer outside my dad's house. And Kyle's like, no way, awesome. And David's like, well, what about that do you think is awesome? And Kyle's like, oh, but you said he has a big property, right? Like there's a lot of space. No, it's a normal house. Like I've been in that spot before where like you're over eager to try to connect with somebody and like you do a little bit too much in the moment and it doesn't come off as completely like you're all the way there. So I feel bad for Kyle here. Definitely hope that he and David kind of get back on the same page. But I think the interesting game piece that you were mentioning earlier, we don't see a lot of game, but we saw a little bit, is that it'll be very interesting to see what happens with this tribe along with Purple if they go into a swap zone, because you have basically 3 duos with Kyle and Camilla in the middle, because Kyle and Camilla last week are working with David and Chrissy. But this week we see Mitch and Charity want to work with, Kyle and David because they're big shields that can protect them. So actually, let me back up for a second. Kyle and Camilla are a pair, and they're working with David and Chrissy. Mitch and Charity are a pair. They want to work with Kyle and with David, leaving out Camilla and Chrissy. So you have Kyle here who has an idol, is in the kingmaker position because he has Camilla as his tight ally, but he also can work with David to work with Mitch and Charity, or he can go with David and work with Camilla and Chrissy. So there's a lot of interesting ways this could break out depending on how the tribe swap works.
Yeah, I think the reason why I'm very high on Orange and Purple, and especially it's just I could see pretty much anyone on any of those tribes going far, except for maybe Star on Purple. Like all the others, I like Orange. I look at it and the way you broke it down, I'm like, wow, I really don't know how that'll shake out. If I could pick one person that I think is going to go home from Orange, like I don't know who I would pick. We haven't really got much from Chrissy, and I worry about that. We haven't seen. It feels like the story's focusing more on the other players and not her. And Charity kind of the same, but we did get that moment with her and Mitch, and we've seen a lot from Mitch. So I do feel like they could go far as a duo, but it's hard for me to determine like which way I think this goes. So I really like that, and I think Orange is a great group overall.
Yeah, and that's a good segue as well. I think unless you have anything else from the episode, if you want to then start talking about next week, because I think to your point, if I had to pick one player from each tribe that could be in danger with the swap, I think Charity is that person on Orange, because it sounds like people really like Mitch and want to work with Mitch, but they don't trust that he works with Charity. That's also a very
I think that
a very bad way of phrasing that. They don't trust that Mitch works with Charity. It's not a great way of phrasing
that. Right, and that's kind of what I was saying before. Is like a lot of times if they want to work with you but not your ally, they'll just vote your ally, and you're like, all right, now you have nowhere to go except for us. So I think I can see it. In terms of like who I think next, I mean, there's no way of knowing with how the swap plays out. We don't know yet.
Well, I don't know, but to be fair, people online have already, because they're wizards, they've already pieced together the trailer. So if you look hard enough, you can find what the division is.
Yeah, I don't need to do that until.
I know.
Okay. You know what? Before we get into that, we even spoke about it enough, so I want to make sure I call this out. Mary is incredible.
I love Mary. Yeah.
I shit on the Green Tribe the entire time today, and I forgot to even shout out how much I like Mary. She's amazing in confessionals. She's really good at the game, I think. I think she kind of got screwed with her tribe placement, obviously. But her way of kind of maneuvering out and finding a way was great. I love the way that she was just kind of playing reverse psychology with Say, and immediately going to swim in the water after the challenge instead of going to look for an idol and like making it seem like she had something. I know it didn't work technically because like they still voted for her and she used the shot in the dark and it worked. But I think that type of game savviness is like really, really good. And like, it reminded me a little bit of like the reverse psychology from like late in the season with Genevieve last season that she was trying to play with Teeny. Like that's kind of what it reminded me of. So I'm really high on Mary. I hope she gets into a situation with the swap where she's not screwed and like she could actually find her footing, because she, in my opinion, chaos aside from everywhere, was the star of the episode this season. That last on Wednesday. So really like Mary. Really excited to see Mary going forward, and then we could get to who we think is most in danger from all the tribes. But yeah, I just wanted to make sure we didn't go through the whole episode without me shouting that out.
You're completely correct. I think we haven't had a swap in so long. I was eager to talk about the swap, but you're completely correct that we did, move on a little bit quick. I do agree that Mary is great. I think a lot of people really love Mary, not just because she's an underdog, but because she's an underdog, but I think she has like a very like spunky attitude to her where she really got Say, by the way, like spinning where, Say thought she had Nightingale because she was acting so relaxed, and Say is like, I'm paranoid because she would not be this relaxed if she didn't have something. She had nothing. She just used her shot in the dark. So I think Mary's a lot of fun to watch. I'm excited to see her keep going. And I really think, Dylan, that you mentioned Genevieve, that obviously people have been making all the Genevieve and Rachel comparisons, like that rivalry, but there's some respect there. I think Say and Mary, like you think of, like you said, Thomas and Bianca, Joe and Eva, Mitch and Charity, like all the pairs that we have on the season. The frenemies pair, or not really friends, but like the pair of Say and Mary is so much fun to watch. That whole sequence of her like following her in the woods. And normally when people follow other people, they get annoyed. Last season, Dylan, the people were very pissed because Rome did not get off of Saul. And Saul's like, can you leave me alone? And Rome's like, no, I can go wherever I want. And people were like, that's so annoying. And that people didn't like that. This season, it's almost like a fun little respect thing where Mary's being chased by Say, and Mary's like, man, she's going to chase me. She's going to chase me. It's kind of the fun of it. So I really hope, for entertainment's sake, that Cedric goes one way, Mary and Say get put on the same tribe, and we just see the shenanigans continue. But they've been very fun to watch.
I would absolutely love that. I would absolutely love it. And yeah, I agree. It is a fun rivalry. So we'll see if it lasts any longer, or if that was the grand conclusion that last episode. But yeah, I'm excited. I would say, yeah, if I had to go one person from each tribe that I think is most in danger, I would go Say, just because I think that even when she swaps, people are going to see her as a potential huge threat and somebody that is hard to work with based on what we've seen so far. So I'll say that Say is in most danger there. I don't think Cedric's in a good spot either, but now that he gets lucky, I think, with the tribe swap, so we'll see. I think, and what I will say is Cedric kind of proved that he has a good social game, but I don't think the strategy is obviously not there at all. So I think that if he gets put into a new tribe, he should integrate well, I hope. And then in terms of purple, I feel like Star is pretty much, again, I think if she ends up in a tribe heavy of purple, then she's in huge trouble. If she gets put with no purple or minimum purple, then maybe she's in a much better spot. But I can't imagine that whoever she goes with on the tribe with purple is going to want to work with her based on what we've seen. And in fact, if she gets swapped with anybody from purple, that person from purple might use her as just an easy vote. So I think she's in big trouble, Star. I don't think she's making the merge. And then in terms of orange, like I said, I think you've convinced me a little bit on Charity. I also would watch for Chrissy, who I like her. I want to see more of her, but I just don't know based on what we've seen. So I'm going to say that those two are in danger for orange as well.
Yeah. So for Star, it's interesting because, like you mentioned, if she gets swapped, it really will come down to how, again, sorry if you can hear the car horn in the background. It really comes down to like who Star gets swapped with, but also like what is the other composition? Because the problem is, yeah, like if she gets swapped with just by herself, she's in danger. If she gets swapped with Eva, Eva's not going to want to work with her, and Eva will be like, you know what, we want an easy vote. Let's just get rid of Star. I could see that happening. Anybody else? The thing is, Dylan, that if it becomes Star, and let's just say it's Star and Shaheen, Star and Joe, Star and Bianca, whatever the case is, it depends on how many orange are there. Because the thing is that if it's like, like 3 green or like 2 green and an orange, I could see them being like, you know what, Star, we don't want to go home. We're outnumbered, green, orange. We're going to sacrifice you. But if there's a chance, because orange and purple are going to want to take out each other's numbers. So if there's a chance for purple to take out orange, I could see Eva, and let's just say it's for sake of argument, it's like Eva, Star, Mary, David and Chrissy, and it's like now it's like 2-2-1. You got to be like, okay, purple's got to stick together, take the green number of Mary, and try to get rid of orange. But if there's a chance for them to say, like, you know what, we're already outnumbered, starred, it's better you, not me, I could see that happening. So it really will depend on, I think, the orange and purple compositions on each tribe.
Yeah, and like you said, if you have a player like Mary, and people want to keep her in the game, I think that, it's weird because it could go both ways, right? If, let's just say it was a 2-2-1 with anybody from green, okay? That person from green could be the easiest target if orange and purple just team up with each other, right? That being said, I think that from what we've heard, like a little, we've heard like when the advantages come to the tribe, they're like, oh, like orange, they were like, we'd use this against purple. I have a feeling that orange and purple are going to want to go for each other's throats right away. Because I think that's going to be the war that we see in the merge, is like who has the more numbers going into the merge. So I think green could be in a good spot coming into this tribe swap, because a lot of these could be used. A lot of these players, Mary, Cedric, Say, whoever gets swapped on, if it's a 2-2-1, the green could be used as the swing vote in what is a 2-2-2 vote. And then they need the 1 to make it a 3-2. So I'm really curious to see how that works out. Because I think, if it's Say or Cedric or Mary, they could bury themselves and it could be an easy 4-1, or they could integrate themselves well and be used as a swing vote going forward and make themselves a number and make themselves available. So it could go either way, and I'm curious to see how that works out.
Yeah, I think actually if I had to pick, Dylan, I think no matter what the numbers are, I think purple's actually in danger here, because like you were saying, green is going to be the usual decimated tribe that's going to be used for numbers in the orange-purple war, and purple is outnumbered in terms of advantages. Because if we look at the advantage tally, if I have this correct, I've been trying to keep this pretty up to date just because there's a lot of moving parts. I think Kyle has an idol because Say used hers last week and Star hasn't found hers. So Kyle has an idol. Last week, Mitch and Thomas did the puzzle, and Mitch got a vote block and Thomas got a vote steal. Granted, Mitch's whole tribe knows about it. Thomas, no one knows about his. And then for the extra vote, Camilla has that. So orange has a lot of ammunition. So I have to actually make a prediction here, and I don't want to do this because I think purple might be my favorite tribe to watch just in terms of the people. I have a very sneaking suspicion that unless it's like, 4 purple on one tribe and like a green or an orange, I think no matter what the composition is, I could see a purple going home next week, because Kyle, Mitch, and Camilla all have ammunition, whether it's an idol, a vote block, or an extra vote, and they could easily, even without green support, even if it's like 2 oranges, a green, and 2 purples, with an idol and a vote block and an extra vote, you can still like sway the vote even without that green vote. So I think if I have to make a prediction, and I don't want to do this, I think we could lose a purple next week.
Yeah, I think that's super interesting point. I mean, the advantages will be certainly fun to watch. I think it's tough. I do think a lot of them will be in like, I don't think the idol's being played anytime soon. So I think it'll be the extra vote and steal vote. There's also part of it, like if it's out in the open, like they told everybody about it, like you may as well just use it sooner rather than later. Because the longer you hold on to that, at that point when your entire tribe knows, the more you're going to be seen as a target. So I think there is incentive as well to get rid of it. So I do like that prediction. I think that makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, I think I think in situations like this, you're gonna definitely, like you said, I think Kyle's idol will stay for a bit. I think you're gonna seal. I think, and also I think if Thomas's advantage is a secret, unless he's in danger, I don't see him wanting to use it yet, because I think that kind of gives up his position. I think a lot of people like Thomas. People seem to trust Thomas. He has a pretty good social game. And if no one knows you have an advantage and you whip it out, I think that kind of makes you seem like a target. And in the new era, the classic thing that we've been seeing is the minute you raise your threat level, your target goes up tenfold and you're in danger. So I think that Thomas will keep his, unless he's in super, super danger. This is why I think that we're going to see either Mitch's vote block or Camilla's extra vote next week. And that's going to really play a factor in, who goes next.
Yeah, I think that makes a lot of sense. Is there anything else that we have before we head out for the week?
I think we talked a lot about, like you said, we spent 20 minutes on the Green Tribe, but it was a very important tribal council. I mean, that was the bulk of the episode, so we had to do that. We went over the swap, each tribe. The one thing we didn't discuss, because it's not like it's a huge deal, is like blindfold challenge. I know you and I love a blindfold challenge. I think it's actually pretty polarizing, Dylan. I think former players that have gone through this, and I don't think they like it. I think they have PTSD from the blindfold challenge. Like Rob hates it, Steven hates it, because like, you know, when you run into something, you see people get hurt. As a viewer, I think it's awesome. I think it's awesome. I love seeing the blindfold challenge. And I got to give a shout out to Joe. Did you see Joe in the start of the challenge?
He memorized it. He memorized it. Yeah,
right to the thing.
Yeah. I love blindfold challenges. Keep them. Ignore the former players.
Yeah.
Sorry, but you signed up for the show. This is what you got to do.
Yeah, no, I think it'd be fun. I would love to play in a blindfold challenge. I mean, I think it's kind of terrifying to be blindfolded, but to be the caller is got to be a lot of fun. Although
if you want to make the blindfold challenges potentially less dangerous, literally just for that single challenge, just instead of having like the wooden poles throughout the whole thing, just literally just put padding on them. It would be the same. Just make sure this way, it's like the blindfold is still fun because you're still watch people run into things and like go the wrong way. But if there's at least a little bit of padding on the poles, it's like you don't have to worry about somebody like cutting their face open or like actually like hurting into a hard thing. You could just put a little padding on it and just make sure that like nobody like actually like gets seriously hurt. But yeah, you got to keep them.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's a lot of fun. I think no matter what, people are going to get hurt. If you can make it a little bit safer, sure. But like, I remember in All Stars, like Big Tom gets like clobbered by a piece, and that was bad. I remember like with the cubes, people like rolling on someone's foot. So people are going to get hurt no matter what. But I think it's fun TV. Always love a blindfold challenge.
Yeah. All right. That's all we got for this week. We'll be back next week to recap episode 4 and excited to see what happens with the tribe swap.
Looking forward to it, Dylan. We're back to a swap in episode 4. Grab your torches and head back to camp.
Good night.